my team is the one who pays it. For the PSAPs in the room, when you get your equipment funded, my team's the one who manages that budget. And then we have a group of PSAP advisors who help kind of in a consulting way, in guidance way, at the PSAP level to make sure you're getting exactly what you're supposed to be getting and that transaction is smooth. I've got a really freaking cool job. I absolutely love it. I started this career in 1994 as a baby dispatcher at the Sacramento Police Department, spent 21 and a half years there, and then went to the Placer County Sheriff's Department as a PSAP manager, spent 3 years there, and then came here to the state. It's been an awesome experience. I will say the team that we have at the OES office is dynamic, they're smart, they're resourceful. So if you have questions, reach out to us. We'll get you lined up with the right 911 branch person, and they'll help answer all your questions and get the right resources. For the PSAP folks, if you want to have a briefing like this for your team, your executive at your agency, reach out to us. We can tailor this. We can make this 15 minutes for your chief or sheriff. We can make this 4 hours, whatever you want. We'll help spread this message, and we'll help bring resources and help educate your agency on what the 911 branch can do. So with that, here's some of the topics that we're going to talk about. I've got a quick NG 911 update, an update about our cloud CPE process and kind of where we are with the legacy call handling and the new call handling, alert and warning or mass notification, an update on our annual training allotment, and then that's where I stop. I've got like 2 slides, and Andrew's got 128 slides on 988. But ultimately, because of the size of the group, I'd like this to be more conversational, less me projecting our message out. So as we're going through, if you have comments, questions, whatever, feel free to raise a hand. This is just a set of talking points for us. We don't have to stay specific to this conversation. So, NG 911 update. Who here has been tracking the progress of the project? Thanks, Andrew. Really appreciate you doing your job. So I work on the program management side. Andrew's in the technology side. He's got the smart people and the resources that are doing the project. I got the good people who just get the contracts in place and do the funding and management of that service. So Tuolumne County, we went live in November. That's where we're live. That's where we are. The big question that seems to be coming up from everybody is, okay, well, you did it in Tuolumne. What else? What's next? So we've run against a few challenges. The state of California has the largest 911 network in the United States. We process over 27 million 911 calls a year. The next closest state to us is the state of Texas. They process just over 19 million. The way we've designed our network, we have Atos as our primary network provider. They touch all 438 PSAPs. Then we have a regional provider like Fred's team over at NGA 911. And I'm just going to use Fred's team in the central. So for central region, basically San Francisco to Lake Tahoe, south to about the Grapevine, over to the state border, Nevada, and the ocean. They touch those PSAPs in that region. 163, something like that.
That's the north. It's about 130.
Okay, 130 in central region-ish. So NGA carries a portion of traffic and Atos carries a portion of traffic. And then Atos has a backup responsibility for NGA. NGA is processing roughly 85% of the 911 workload into the PSAP. Atos is processing the remaining balance. If for some reason NGA fails, Atos can pick that call up and deliver it. And then at the PSAP today, you have a 911 trunk, you got one trunk. One trunk is one call. In the NG 911 world, we have fiber optic cables. So NGA is responsible to put 2 in, Atos is responsible to put 2 in, so now we have 4 fiber connections. Then they bring in an LTE solution. And then we're working to integrate the statewide microwave network as another redundant layer. So these fiber cables are diverse. So if one gets, as Budge calls it, Billy Bob backhoe, goes in and cuts a fiber, they have a redundant source. If both get cut, the other provider has two that will still deliver traffic. So when we, if you take a message, I'm looking. Thanks, I appreciate that.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. Just giving you a hard time. So the benefit, if you examine our network, our network's been installed throughout the state at a majority of our PSAPs for a long period of time. And there's monitoring on that network. And if you examine what the network performance is, we've had zero outage. We average 50,000, 30,000 minutes of outage in the legacy network. So from legacy, 30,000 minutes a month to zero in network, in the NG911 network. That's huge because of the complexity that we built. Now, the challenge is we built this complexity and nobody else in the United States is doing this. So other states have an ESINet call routing with statewide call handling solution. And I'll use like Oklahoma and Kansas as an example. It's one vendor, one network, one call handler. We're using 4 vendors. Legacy, we've got 7, 8 different call handling solutions. And then we're integrating OSP traffic into that, and then the redundancy, and then the configuration in between networks to be able to provide the redundancy and survivability. It's hard. Okay. The biggest challenge that we've come up against is when we bought call handling, the call handling solutions that you have in your PSAPs today, the vendors told us that meant NENA I3 standard. It was contract compliant. We had no way to validate that. We did not have an NG911 lab. We couldn't validate it. So we go, we plug in, and we're like, here we go, plug in, it should, oh crap, didn't work. So now we're working with those vendors to try to get compliance. And we're working through those details to try to get this to work. Our next deployment, we're hoping to get into Imperial County. We're working out some final details there. That's a host remote configuration, which adds another level of complexity for our vendors deploying that network there. And we're working at South Lake Tahoe to deploy there in El Dorado County. We hope in the next month, but again, this is the most complex. And the more we get out and interact with other states, we're finding we're the only ones doing a network to this complexity and to the true NENA I3 standard. So that is our update. Any questions about the NG911 project?
How's it work?
Hey, Ron, can I see you afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, buddy.
That's Southern California.
Andrew, when's Southern California going to go by? What part of Southern County? Orange County.
Orange County, so right now we're looking into Imperial County, as Paul said, we'll go first. And once we've gone live in Imperial County, next up will be Riverside County, then Orange County after that. So if things go well and we get some deployments in our belt, probably Q4 this year.
Yeah. Did you hear that, Q4? So there's a lot of variables. We are looking at alternate sites. If we can get readiness at alternate sites and everything works, then we'll pull the trigger at those other sites and go. Andrew's got the project management team. He's got a crack team. They work very well with their vendors. These are conversations that we have 3 or 4 times a day. As we were driving down here, Andrew was on a meeting with his team, just continually strategizing. What do we do? What's the next step? How do we go? How do we move forward? So if you have, again, if you have specific questions about your PSAP and you want to do a PSAP specific brief, let us know. We'll invest the time to come down and have that visit. So legacy call handling equipment, that stuff that you have in your PSAP today. So for the PSAP folks, who has Vesta? Who has Viper? All right, there's a proud hand right back there. So the contracts that you use to buy that equipment, that is expired. We can no longer support purchasing that equipment. Now, your equipment is still under maintenance. You still have the extended maintenance product that is available by those resellers. That is still supported. And they are required by contract to meet those terms of the contract. And I'll tell you, if they're not, let me know. We'll work offline and we'll make sure they understand their requirements. I say that because now move forward, Andrew worked with a team of folks in 2020 to issue a new request for proposal to do cloud native call processing equipment. Total time about 8 months to do the procurement. We have 11 solutions with 19 resellers on this contract. Right now, here is a graphic that we have designed to kind of show what's happening. So as a requirement to contract, we've said that cloud call handling solution has to go through our NG911 lab before they can go and sell to a PSAP. Because of our legacy call handling, we've said we need to validate that you meet the standard, you can configure your interfaces, and you can support call handling in California. You do it in our lab, we'll give you license, then you can go out and start selling. So currently, we have Atos with their cloud solution and NGA 911 with their cloud solution have cleared the lab. They have validated that they can deliver a call in the NG 911 environment, and they're out and they're able to make sales. We have Lumen with their solution who are currently working through the final phases of testing. They have a crew scheduled to be up the week of August 8th. And they're hoping to be finalized on August 8th is a final step. And then they'll move over to the successful column, and they'll be the third solution available to purchase on contract. Other solutions, those vendors should not be reaching out to the PSAPs until they have cleared the lab. They can't do sales calls. So if you're getting a call other than Atos, NGA, and soon Lumen, you need to ask them to call the state. So, yes, sir.
Going back to warranty, did they extend for that year 6, year 7? Because there was a cutoff. Have you guys extended that or?
Yeah, so for some agencies, they were post year 8 on the legacy contract. We did work with AT&T to get an extended year 8 maintenance contract with a 1-year option to take it out to year 9 to get CPE support.
Okay, but covering that year 6, year 7, because there was like a hard cutoff earlier this year.
I think everybody's, all that work has been done. Everybody's got their paperwork in. Yeah. You'll see up here at the top, we have Motorola and Carbine. They have engaged CalOES and said, we want to start testing. But what they have done is they've started to work independently with our test scripts in their network to see, can they even start the process? They have not come into our lab yet. As soon as they come into our lab, we'll advance them on this graphic and we'll start talking about where they are in lab testing. But right now it's Lumen, Atos, and NGA. Any questions about this graphic in Cloud CPE? Another update, Ella Sotelo down in LA, the LA County Coordinator, everybody know her. She, when a couple months ago, when these cloud providers were clearing the lab, she was like, I don't know what this cloud is. It's not Vesta, it's not Viper. I really wish we can host a demo. And we're like, okay. So Andrew and Ella and a couple other members of our team started to work with her. We have a vendor demo day scheduled for next Tuesday, the 26th. It's NGA and Atos, their cloud solutions are going to be presented. And we have authorized that to be a special PSAP meeting. So the use of reimbursement is available through the California 911 branch. It is not your ATA funding, it's a separate fund. So it's above and beyond your ATA. We did see a lot of interest. It sparked a lot of interest for people to attend. So Janae Dabrowski, who's our new PSAP advisor, the manager over our PSAP advisory group, she's scheduling in September, we're gonna do the same thing up north. We're hoping Lumen clears the lab here in August, so we're gonna have 3, Lumen, Atos, and NGA in that. And what we're looking at is hosting at our facility at CalOES. We'll have a room for Lumen, a room for NGA, and a room for Atos. And we'll just split everybody up in groups, and at a time period, you'll go through a new room and see what that solution is. And then I also offer, if you want to see it privately, you can come up to our lab. OES, when this project started, we built a lab environment. It's a 6-seat PSAP, full PSAP, dispatch furniture. We have Vesta and Viper, and then 2 cloud call handling positions current with these vendors in the lab. So if you want to come up and see it, you can work with our team. Sorry, Fred, without the salespeople. If you want to see it with the salespeople, you work with Fred and the Altos team, and soon the Lumen team. You come up into the lab and you can see it. And we offer that up. We do have a team. I can't remember what county it is, but today we have a county that flew up to work with our engineers to get a private tour of the lab and see what that solution looks like. So that is an available option. The other thing that we're doing down in the LA region, they want to do a couple pilot projects. Let's install 1 or 2 of these positions, put them in there, connect them, and allow the call takers to test drive them. So we've got support, and those projects are moving El Monte and Downey. So we're looking for agencies in the central and northern region. So if you would like to host a pilot and get a position, one of these cloud positions installed, talk to me. We'll see what we can do to support that. We'll see what the vendors want to do. It's something that we have a lot of interest in. These vendors are new into this arena, but this technology is proven. So we want to make sure that you're comfortable in what you're seeing. Any questions?
On that note, for those of you that are closer down south, Riverside PD will be hosting NG911 on September 15th. For this same meeting, there'll be a full demo.
Thank you for that.
Riverside PD, 9:15.
Riverside Police Department.
Yeah, September
Yep.
15th. That's our next, that's our September after meeting. We'll be hosting it at Riverside PD, and NGA will be our presenter.
All right, as a part of the next gen 911 contract, when we started to draft a contract, that's when the big fire up in Paradise happened. And Sonoma County had previous, I think it was 2017, the Tubbs fire went through Sonoma. In all of the analysis coming out of these fires, we found there's inconsistent alert and warning or mass notification systems provided to PSAPs and alerting authorities. So Budge Curry, our branch manager, and I were sitting one morning over coffee, and I don't know who had the idea, but one of us said, we should really do that. So we started writing a poof. We had alert and warning included into the NG911 solution. So for the state of California, every component of NG911 is tariff. It's regulated through the California Public Utilities Commission. So the way we wrote this is we said, I'm going to use NGA as this example. NGA, if you want to have an NG911 trunk, you have to write a tariff, which is regulation through the California Public Utilities Commission. And that network is regulated by the PUC, and it's regulated under our contract. We did the same with alert and warning. Atos is the one who got the contract. Atos doesn't have a mass notification platform themselves, so they had a subcontractor. The original subcontractor that they had to provide service was not doing a good job in deployment, and they were challenging all of the requirements that we had written into the contract. So Atos recognized the challenge in that subcontractor. They came to us and said, we want to redo our subcontractor agreement. So they removed Everbridge and placed Brave Mobile Safety in as the mass notification provider. Since that, so that took place in March, from August 2019 to March of 2022, we had no agencies live in alert and warning. Since March of 2022 to last Tuesday, we have 9 agencies fully deployed, fully live today using Rave as their sole mass notification and alert and warning solution for their location. We have another 53 in some phase of deployment. So we're extremely proud of this. And the purpose of CalOES putting this into the NG911 contract is twofold. One, we saw a lot of agencies didn't have a solid platform. We have agencies up north who don't have a lot of money, so they get the base package. I'm getting alert and warning, but every time I send a message, I have to pay for every phone call it makes. So, they have a $10,000 a year contract for alert and warning, and they have a $185,000 a year phone bill. And there's no way to prepare that in your budget because it's an unknown, right? So we built this as a no-cost option for the local agency and alerting authorities. The other thing, who here manages alert and warning for their agency? Anybody familiar with it? So in alert and warning, it uses a database of contacts. One of the ways you get that is the 911 database. So as a local agency, you want to get your 911 data, you have to write a check to AT&T and Frontier to get the data. So there's a cost. And depending on how big your community is and how fast that community is growing, you may have to do that monthly, quarterly, or annually. So we wrote in there, Atos maintains our 911 database. Atos, you're going to give that to the agency for free. And you're going to make it automated. So you don't have to do it. They're going to do it in an automated process. When there's an update into the location database, it's going to push down every day to the mass notification solution. When you log in to send a notice, your contacts are fresh. When you previously purchased that through AT&T and Frontier, you buy it on Monday, by Friday it's stale. Statistically, I've heard in the state of California, your data becomes stale in 30 days by 10%. 10% of your population, on average, moves, adds, or changes their contact information in the 911 database. So we're getting it live, fresh. So we're going to have maybe 1% stale data on average. So this is not a mandatory platform. This is available free if you want it. We'll work with our team. We'll get you engaged. We'll get you signed up. If you come back to us and say, you know what, this solution doesn't work for us, we want to go our own direction, we absolutely support that. That's a local decision. We wanted this to be an available tool for everybody. We're currently drafting a policy manual. We've seen a lot of need for a full understanding of what the available use and really provide direction over what is and what is not appropriate use of mass notification. So we're drafting that. That's going to be presented at our next advisory board meeting, which is scheduled here in August. I think it's August 17th, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. up at the CalOES campus at Public Safety Communications. And then below, I'll make this slide deck available. Tim and Ron, if you can either post it on your website or send it out to the membership or whatever. There's a link here. This link talks about the state-specific platform. It's got some FAQs and some other information available. And then there's a contact link. You can ask any question you want, and the RAVE team has about a 24-hour turnaround on those questions and answers. And they're really good. If you want more information, you can reach out to me. I can get you engaged with the right people, or you can reach out to our contact, Michael Elder, in the CalOES team. Annual training allotment. So PSAP folks. Yes. Who's my PSAP folks here? All right. So this California 911 branch, when I started, the annual training allotment was $3,000 per PSAP per year. And I came in coming from a previous PSAP going, okay, by the time I send 3 people to Calnina, I pay registration, airfare, and hotel. That's like a person and a half. And that gives me nothing for future, for the other posts, the other CPT credits that we have to maintain and everything else. So we upped it to $10,000 a year. And then we got agencies coming back on, I'm using it, $10,000, thank you. But, I have 85 people in my agency. 10,000 isn't really, thanks, but not the best. So I think it actually started with Tim and Budge. And then Budge came to me with a conversation.
Those are on.
Was it Ron? Was it you? Okay. I want to give credit where credit's due. So that was Ron's good idea. Go on. It started with an innocent conversation. It started with an innocent conversation of, hey, this is a great platform. We really like it. Thank you. But is there a way that we can make it more equal? So if you have an agency who has 6 dispatchers and an agency who has 85, 6 dispatchers don't need 10,000. The 85 may need a little bit more. So we looked at some options and came up with this tiered funding level based on your busiest month workload, which matches your call handling funding model. So it's easy for our PSAP advisors and our reimbursement coordinator to just go, okay, boom, you have 12,050 calls a month. You're fitting in the tier 4. You get $20,000 a year. So what I'm asking is the toughest trivia question. So this previous fiscal year, 21-22, we put $4.5 million on the table for all PSAPs in the state, 438 agencies. $4.5 million, folks. How much of that do you think was consumed?
100,000.
You got 100,000. Anybody else?
100,001.
This isn't Price is Right, Andrew.
Always that guy.
Yeah, there's always the guy. Out of 4.5 million, we had $500,000 consumed, and I validated on the trip down here. That included the county coordinators. So the county coordinators get an equal funding. Their funding together equal 500,000. That's 11% of this budget. So in my previous life working in a PSAP, I had a friend of mine was a PSAP manager at the city of Roseville. And she would fight the city of Roseville, who was flush with money. Roseville they were booming. They had money come. They were paying people to move into their jurisdiction. She went to the finance people and said, listen, the state's giving away free money. Increase my budget by what the state is guaranteeing our agency. If I use it, I reimburse it and comes back to your pocket. If I don't use it, at the end of the year, it's going back into your pocket. You're net zero any way you look at it. So it took her about 2 years, and finally the city finance folks started to think, wait a minute, this only, at the time was 3,000. It's only 3,000 bucks, yeah. Increase your training budget by $3,000. If you use it, that money goes straight back to the city because their budget comes out of city general fund. So I've shared this with our other agencies who have gone back to their finance folks to say, it's in our operations manual. It's now posted online. If you go to caloes.ca.gov/911, look on the right side under operations manual. Chapter 3 is the citation. You can print that, take it to your finance folks and say, here's my call stats. I fit into funding level 4. I get guaranteed $20,000 a year from the state of California. Increase my training budget by 20. If I use it, you get your money back. And if I don't use it, you keep your money. You're at no risk. I want people to use this money. Yes, sir.
Question on this, because this is annual fiscal year, July 1 through June 30, how do they determine what months are they going to use to determine what your lot is going to be for that fiscal year?
So
How do we
because
define the budget?
it could change every year. You could be currently at 1,201 this year. Next year, you're below 1,200 per month. So at what point do you determine what the allotment is going to be for the year?
I would say annually.
Prior 18 months. Busiest month over the prior 18.
So potentially you could lock in the 20,000 indefinitely because it's the 18 months as a rolling month.
Yeah, and that's to make sure that we're covering busy summer months and not.
It's the busiest single month in that 18 months, busiest single month. It's not an average.
Yeah, it's the busiest month over the course of a view of 18.
But I'm saying if you're looking back 18 months, now we're 6 months later, you're going to go back only 18 months from then. So it continually, it could potentially.
And most PSAPs are call volume is going back up, right? But historically, it's been 2 to 5% per year increase.
In the years I've been with the state, the only drop that we've seen was the first year of COVID. We look at that as everybody sheltered, nobody was driving, nobody was out in, road raging, you weren't out at the bar, beating up your buddies. We lived a boring life then, right? But statistically, we're at least level with calls and going up. Especially in certain areas where you have a lot of growth, you're still gonna go up with calls. You have a lot of questions. Let's go.
We have the same question.
Yeah.
Can we streamline the system of submitting paperwork? Please?
I think that's my,
Or
I think
reimburse
that's
it?
what people don't reimburse. They think the
I screw it up
paperwork,
every single time.
every single time I get it bounced back.
So
Every time.
And I'll copy what she did so that I'm
That's
like,
all
yours
I do.
went through. No, but I'm copying like, did yours go through? And she's like, yeah. So I said, send it to me, and then I do it, and they're like, nope, it doesn't work. And I'm like, God dang it. I mean, it is not, and it have to like send a mail is awkward. Like, why can't we have something?
okay, so let's
I like
work
your new
offline.
gal, I will tell you that. that
Yeah.
Because she actually doesn't do it.
Carrie,
Oh, Carrie.
yeah, have you been interacting with her? Our girl Carrie up there?
I have.
Yeah.
And I really like her a lot.
Yeah.
They
Push my
there's been a
paperwork
big
through.
difference
Thank you.
in email.
Well, one of the requests I've heard too is even just a simple fillable form, make an online form that's, so
So-
it's 2022 is all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to address your question a little tongue in cheek. You're going to get a sense of sarcasm here, but I'm being serious. We tried to bring a vendor online to automate some of this. The vendor brought a guy in who didn't listen to us. We're saying we need this path, what Andrew said, I need this path to find it. He's like, I'm building you Mount Rushmore, baby. I am going to fix every problem in the world. And he took our attempt to do everything online. I think he went into a different universe. And within about a year, we were like, you're done. He was so far gone, we couldn't even bring the project back. So we said, you're done, you're fired. We're done with that part of the contract. A fillable form we can do. And that may take me some time. We don't create the forms. We have a person in our OES agency who creates the forms for us. So I can work on trying to get a fillable form. We are totally fine with everything electronic. So if you fill it out, you want to DocuSign, you want to send it to us, we're totally fine. And I'll work with Carrie offline to make sure that is. And if you want to work with Carrie, I'm more than happy to put her on an airplane and fly her down here for a day for you guys to all sit down and work out.
That would be,
That's,
we can all I'm sure, Aaron.
Chapter.
Right, see, it deters me.
yeah,
So that's why people don't use it,
Yeah.
and it gets bounced back every single time, and it just gets to be, and I have to say that she ended up filling out my paperwork for me the last time, because I was gonna miss the deadline, and I just didn't have time to go back to it.
So now I will selfishly say, I love Carrie. Carrie was probably the second best hire I had. Andrew was my first. It's only because he's here. I gotta say that.
I was already here, yeah.
Carrie is outstanding. All of her experience, she had no administrative experience at all. Her qualifying experience on the Microsoft Office suite was when she was in college, like 7 years ago. She managed a country club bar, private club bar. She came in and she was like, she kicked the door open. She's like, I'm here. What do you got for me? And I mean, she's got no limits. Anything you ask her to do, she'll figure it out. She's got great aptitude. She's hungry to learn. She's very customer service oriented. So thank you. It's good to hear that. And I will put her on a plane and work with you guys. So let's chat offline.
The last few I've submitted, after I got them signed, I've scanned them, and I've had them emailed, I send them up to her and ask her to review them. If there's any issues, let me know, and I haven't got any issues back. So.
Well-
I'm just saying,
I was gonna say it was lack of training from the prior manager, but I didn't really want to.
And the reality is I told her to put a filter on her email. Anything coming from Ron Dunn goes to trash.
But, like,
maybe it was my train of thought. So- Anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So anyways, I wanted to cover ATA. ATA is very personal to me. We have the authority to spend money on training. So we want the PSAP to be supported. We understand your budgets don't typically support training. And the last thing, when budgets get tight around February, March, and April, the last thing your chief or sheriff wants to do is go spend thousands of dollars to send your dispatch team to a training when they have to pay overtime or buy new equipment, right? So we're trying to make this available to the PSAPs, and we're trying to make the process easier for you to get the reimbursement. Yes,
Who's responsible for figuring this part out?
the math.
Is that gonna be Carrie? Or
Carrie.
is that gonna be me saying, hey, Carrie?
She'll get that from the advisor.
Yeah, so your funding level will come from your PSAP advisor. And Janae Dabrowski, our the manager over the advisor group, just did a list of where all the PSAPs are to say, here's your funding level. Now, if you at the local, if you sit there and your advisor says, nah, you're funding level 3, and you pull your stats and go, no, I'm pretty heavy 4, let us know, and we'll work through that. Okay, I'm not unreasonable. Most of it. Yes, ma'am. I actually have her contact information coming up on a slide.
And to be clear, these are 911 calls, not
That's correct.
calls coming in PSAP, but
Correct.
specifically
In 911, yes. Yeah. So again, I'll make this slide deck available to everybody. It is all public. Yes, sir. Okay, for $1 for you. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to talk through this slide. This is a placeholder slide contact for you guys to take back. The county that your PSAP is in, that's who your advisor is. And then down at the bottom is the supervisor, Janae Dabrowski. Janae came out of a PSAP. She worked at Sacramento Police Department for like 95 years or something. I don't know, maybe 96. I think it's like 24 years she worked at Sacramento Police Department. So she has PSAP experience, and she's very passionate about this as well. So if you have questions about your funding level, that's the team to reach out to. And you have questions about reimbursement, Carrie Johnson is who you reach out to for that. And if it all doesn't make sense, let me know. We'll make sure you get a team to help define. All right, that's the end of my slides. And I get to introduce, yes, sir, you, one question. Yes, sir.
There used to be 4 advisors. Why are there only 3?
Andrew, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. So in the PSAP advisor group, we have 4 advisors. Yvonne Nguyen retired as of the end of June. So she's a vacancy right now. And I love the state of California. I love my office. I think we do some great things, but boy, we're antiquated. So Yvonne came to us probably at the end of April and said, hey, guys, I'm going to retire in July. Submitted my stuff. So we reach out to HR and say, hey, Yvonne's going to retire. Here's all the information we need to post her position. Don't post it before, but the day she leaves, have this all approved and post it. So June 29th, Yvonne left the office. June 30, I'm asking that you post it. And they said, sure. So about mid-May, hey, where's the update? Oh yeah, when she vacates, we'll review that. We know she's vacating. Can you review it now? No, we'll do it then. She needs to be gone. Okay, but again, that's 0. If you review it and approve it, you say, okay, this is done. She leaves, you post it, great. If she doesn't leave, you go, hey, at least we updated it, and you keep it for the next one. Anyways, so it'll be probably 3 months before we can get that position filled. So we've had to do a reorg. So the 3 advisors are taking on a little heavier load. We did onboard, Monday morning, we do onboard a 988 advisor. She will be joining as a part of our 988 deployment team. She has 15-ish years in a PSAP from the city of Sacramento. And when she's onboarded, we'll make sure her contact information is up there as well. Any other questions for me? Hopefully Hopefully that was informative. If not, Andrew's my complaint department.
Thanks, Paul. All right. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Not for the information, but for going through that whole thing without one terrible joke. I really appreciate it. For those of you who know Paul, know that that was very difficult for him to do.
I was trying to be professional, Andrew.
You almost got there. All right, so as Paul mentioned, I work for the technology division in 911, the assistant chief. I work with the project deployment team. So we are responsible for deploying the next gen network for California. You may want to ask, what does that have to do with 911 or 988? Well, basically, whenever anything comes in that budget doesn't really want to deal with, comes to me. So 988 is what we're talking about today. So I've been working with SAMHSA, with the feds for a few months now. You may have seen reports on your local nightly news that 988 is coming. Well, it's here. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about it today, what it means to you as a PSAP, what we're doing at CalOES, what's coming your way, and what the expectation is going to be. So up right here, we have some stats. 2020 was the most recent we could get. We're working on getting newer stats, but all of this stuff is really kind of, right now, we're in a different world than what we're used to with 911, 988. Very, very different. We're learning that. So we've got 312,000 calls that are coming into California right now. I'm going to talk about how those calls get here a little bit. We're going to talk about what the routing looks like for 988. When I say routing, I say that in quotations because it's not very good compared to what we're used to for 911. If you look, you'll see about 1 out of 8 calls in the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline originate in California. For those of you who don't know, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is the 1-800-273-TALK number. It's been around for forever, suicide prevention. 988 is simply the telephone company is basically putting a 3-digit number over the top of it. Same exact thing. When you dial, you get the same phone tree, same veterans service hotline, same LGTB hotline, same, just all the different suicide prevention lines are still there. It's just 988 now. Legislation is passing throughout the country. Each state is handling it differently, just like with 911. They're all doing different things with 988. In some states, there are dispatch requirements. In some states, there are answering requirements. Right now in California, we don't have a whole lot on the books for 988 yet. We have some legislation that's pending right now. It's supposed to be voted on in August. And I'll talk about that a little bit. But for now, it's just the number. It's just you dial 988 instead of 1-800-273-TALK. Goes to a suicide hotline prevention, crisis worker. You talk to them instead. That's really all it is today. So you look at the answer times down here. They're pretty bad when compared to 911. Right now, in the state of California, our office expects or has a standard for all PSAPs that we want you to answer 95% of your 911 calls in 15 seconds or less. As you can see here, we have an average answer rate across the country of 83%. That's just answering the call for 988 or for suicide prevention. California is a little higher than that. Our numbers are closer to 90%. That still means that 10% of all calls that come into 988 or to the 1-800-273-TALK number don't get answered, period. So this is obviously a big concern now that OES is becoming involved and they want us to manage the network and the interplay between 911 and 988. We're trying to make sure that we get this shored up. So there are 13 Lifeline call centers in California. These are the existing centers today that answer these calls. They've been doing this for a long time. They're all nonprofit agencies. They're not, government affiliated. They will probably be folded into CalOES' 911 operation. So we're working with them today to get a baseline assessment of where these centers are, what kind of call volume they have, what counties they cover. We really are starting from zero with these different agencies. So we've been working with them, doing a lot of outreach, doing a lot of site visits, really trying to figure out what their operation looks like so that we can help them out accordingly. So we'll talk through 988 technology, what it looks like right now. Today, over here, you've got your mental health crisis center. This is our version of the PSAP in the behavioral health world. They answer calls, chat, and text today. There are different carriers that bring these requests for service in. Right now, everything routes on your area code. So if you have a 916 area code, Sacramento, on my cell phone here, if I call in, doesn't matter where I'm at, call is going to the crisis center in Sacramento, well space.
As you can probably imagine, it's not a perfect system. Today, doesn't really matter. Today, it's fine because they're just, right now, it's just an expectation of getting somebody on the phone, getting some help, getting somebody to talk to through whatever, crisis you're experiencing. But in the future, the clear expectation of 988 is dispatchable mobile crisis teams. People who can go out and help and provide a non-law, non-fire, non-medical response to some of these calls. Right? So where does that, how are we going to do that when you're routing on area codes? These are some big considerations that we're looking at the 911 office to try to make sure that we've got this program set to move into the future when that expectation is there. Right now, it's not there. Right now, it's just, again, like I said, it's just a pacing of 988 over the 1-800 number, but soon enough, that legislation is going to be coming to California. There will be an expectation of a dispatchable resource for these calls. So we're working on that. So this connection right here is what we're responsible for today, what OES is responsible for. The system that these mental health crisis centers use to answer these calls, right now there's a nationwide, I guess I'll call it a PBX for lack of a better term. Vibrant is the company that essentially routes all 988 calls, routes them again on area code. Calls come into what is essentially a nationwide PBX and get routed off based on area code to whatever center needs to deal with that call. Those centers today, very little interaction with 911 with the PSAP. From our understanding, we've done some outreach. We've asked a lot of PSAPs in the state of California, do you currently work with any suicide prevention hotline center, mobile or mental health crisis center? The answer is usually no. Not a lot of transferring going on back and forth. And that's on both sides. We asked the 988 centers, do you transfer to 911? And they said, not really, once in a blue moon. So right now, this connection, it's 10-digit transfer. That's all it is. There's really nothing else in place today that we can do to make this transfer any more robust, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We do have some limited pilot project. I won't even call pilot projects. We do have some limited what I would say crisis response sort of models in the state. We have counties, cities, jurisdictions who are currently working with local mental health resources, county mental health, city mental health, whatever, to get a call in, to deal with it, to dispatch it. You may already have some sort of mobile crisis team that you're dispatching. So at that local level control, obviously that's a good thing. We're expecting that to continue. As we move into this 988 world, there probably will be some sort of expectation that you transfer to 988, but until we can get some of this routing stuff figured out, we're not changing any of this. OES, same as with 911, we're trying to approach 988 in the same sort of philosophy. We don't want to tell you how to do your job as a PSAP. We just want to give you the technology to make sure that you can do what you need to do. We'll let the politicians tell you how. So what we want to move to is a much more robust transfer, or at least a transfer of information back and forth. We want to make sure that your 988 center and your 911 center both have the ability to send information across. So what we're doing is we are setting up our mental health crisis centers with 911 call handling, essentially. The systems that Paul was talking about, the NGA and the Auto systems that we're doing the demos on, we're currently going out to RFP. We're going to treat these 13 Lifeline centers a little differently. You PSAP folks know you get a choice when you go get call handling. You just say, hey, here's a list of 11 systems or whatever. I want this one. We pay for it. These guys were starting fresh for them, so we're just basically going to tell them, here's what you get. So we're going to go out to RFP. We're going to put some technical requirements in there, a couple things that they do a little bit differently than you guys. But really, it's overkill. I mean, they don't need everything that you guys need for call handling, but we're just going to get it to them so that they have, when the time comes and we take over the network, the 988 network, we'll have the ability to transfer, hopefully with location, with any supplemental data that's coming through to either their center or your center. Because what we're seeing is it's really kind of a one-way street. The legislation that's passing around the country right now, the expectation is that 911 transfer calls to 988. If you have a call that doesn't need law, fire, medical response, it's just somebody needs somebody to talk to, the expectation is that you send that call out, or that's going to be the expectation, right? Laws aren't written yet, but right now the draft of 988 legislation that's going through says 911 center shall transfer. A little bit vague, but I mean, not the wording. Shall is not very vague, but it doesn't tell you, when or why. So the local level, your policy is going to dictate when you transfer that call. But we want to make sure that at the end of this project for us, for the 988 side, they have the equipment to get you that call with that supplemental data, or you have the ability to send that call with that. We'll get through the routing and all that good stuff later on. I mean, right now, it's just tough because that infrastructure is not there. Like I said, we're doing the site visits, we're getting out there. We're getting them racks and circuits, the same thing that we did for you guys for next gen 911. We're putting the same thing in there, a little bit less, you know, on the redundant capacity. We're really not looking for 5 9s for these guys. I mean, I think 4 9s would be, you know, suitable for 988, but we definitely want to get them the ability to get all that information to you on a transfer, and vice versa. So July 2022, we're here. It's already happening. 988 went live July 16th. Again, like I mentioned, it's really the same number when you call, but it was on the local news. It's been in the papers. It's been on the internet. I mean, I've seen it everywhere. It's here. There's still a lot of confusion. There's still a lot of people out there not really sure what is happening with this. I get people calling me, PSAPs calling me all the time saying, hey, my chief is asking about this. Are we expected to answer these calls now? Are they coming to us? What's happening? So there hasn't been a lot of communication on this. We're working through it, but it's hard. 438 PSAPs, it's hard to get out and talk to everybody. So we've been trying to get out and do as many presentations as we can, talk to as many people as we can, just to clear the air, to make sure that the PSAPs understand what the expectation is today, what the expectation is tomorrow, and what OES is trying to do about it. So, you know, the PSAPs aren't answering these calls. These calls are still going to go to the 13 Lifeline centers. They're not going to transfer to you guys today. It may happen every now and then. We think that there will be a little bit of confusion just because we all know, I mean, people don't know the proper time to call 911. I wouldn't expect them to know the proper time to call 988. There's going to be some confusion there. Yeah.
That's kind of a question that I have about my agency works. We're trying to move away from mental health stuff. Trying to get out of this business because obviously the public's kind of spoken that police officers are not the correct people to be responding to mental health crisis. It feels like. I mean, it's not a crime to harm yourself. So,
Yeah.
And you're trying to get out of our hands, basically. So I'm a little confused on how that looks along.
Sure. So there's a lot of agencies in the same boat, right? A lot of agencies trying to I guess sort of follow the public's will, right? I mean, they've kind of spoken. This is not moving it back towards you. This is an effort to simplify that 1-800 number because nobody remembers 1-800-273-855 something, whatever the number is. But 988 is easy to remember, right? So the expectation is the public call that number. Now, in terms of 911, if your city is moving away from, you know, from dealing with these calls or wanting to deal with these calls, wanting to move it to someone else's hands or a mental health professional, that expectation is at the local level is absolutely, you know, supported by OES. I mean, we at the state are not saying, no, you have to do really anything. I mean, we are saying we want to give you the technology to send those calls properly with location if necessary or with whatever you need to send it. But we're not saying that we want you to deal with them. We're not saying that there's any additional expectation there. What we've got here is another entity in 988 stood up parallel to 911, right? And how you guys interconnect and how you guys transfer calls back and forth and who deals with what really is decided at the local jurisdictional level. Like your city's going to decide how you deal with it. If they say, no, we still want the police department to respond to every call, well, then that's what you're going to do. Now, if there's a state law that's written that says you shall transfer a call that doesn't need fire law medical, you know, that's going to be state law, and that's what you're going to be expected to do. What happens to that caller? I'll be talking about that in a little bit. What happens to that caller? What about liability? What about, you know, there's a lot of things unanswered in the legislation, of course, right?
We have a problem where we deal with a place that's up north. I'm not sure what city it's in, and every time they get a call into their center, and I've dealt with them several times, and I apologize, I can't think of that name off the top of my head. Every time the 805 area code comes up for someone, they only call Oxnard Police. It's a huge drain. So what is the training that's going to also go into 805 covers more than Oxnard? So I feel like that's
not today.
It's a problem.
Well, that's that area code routing I was referring to. And that's what we're trying to get away from, right? So Vibrant, the system that handles the nationwide 988 call routing today, is sending those 805 numbers. Well, they're coming to you, right? Because the call is going to whatever that mental health crisis center is. They're determining, well, this is actually an emergency. So let's send it off to the agency that's in, or that we have listed as our 805 contact. So apparently that's you.
But I don't even understand why any of that ever gets sent to us. I think that's my confusion, and maybe not even the proper format here, because it's still not a crime. So
Yeah.
police are crime driven. We're trying to get out of family disputes. Just want to clarify, like in the future,
It's a problem. No,
it's a
this,
liability. You're saying it's a liability issue, but whether or not we respond, I'll tell you what Oxnard does. If we go and it gets heated, we're gonna shut up shop. We're gonna walk. Sorry to say that to people that don't realize it, but that's how we do business. Because we're not forcing someone's hand, because we've gotten in shootings over these times. These things are very highly not safe for officers.
Yeah.
And they're not safe for the public either, if you're armed with something. So we will, if there is, is that the only person in the house? We vote. If they're armed or not, we'll leave.
Yeah.
So I just see the conflict coming of.
for sure. And there is a lot that is happening at the city, county level, jurisdictional level that has to close that gap, right? Because you have your policies in place and your 911 call takers, they're executing policy, right? I mean, that's their job, is to execute policy. So policy says send an officer, they're sending an officer. If the policies don't, yeah, somebody's got to deal with that. No, yes, we're not in the business of telling PSAPs how to do your job. We're not gonna be in the business of telling 988 centers when to transfer. So that is going to be an issue for a little while, I feel.
To address a little bit about that, this isn't coming from CalOES, this is coming from politicians, and we all know how politicians are. Your APCO executive board, your county board, and a few others, POA, or the NCOA. We all met with some legislators a month or so ago, and we voiced a lot of concerns about this 988, about the pressure it's going to put on the dispatchers. Are they going to be held accountable if it says you shall transfer and something doesn't get transferred? So it's negotiations, it's talks that we're currently having with the politicians, and we don't agree with the way the law is written. Unfortunately, CalOES was told by the governor, hey, you're going to create this, so they're doing what they can, the best that they can with what they have. Another question I had was, so we have people come from out of state all the time, especially port cities where we get these people, and it's based on the cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to get that if it's a Chicago cell phone and they just happen to be in the city of Santa Barbara? Which crisis center is going to get that? How are they going to know how to direct them?
They are not, Ron.
It's all going to go to Oxford.
It's all going to go to Oxnard's got it.
Right.
No, you bring up a valid point. This is something so I'll get to a slide in a minute here, but I was involved in a 988 sort of a policy working group. We were trying to set up some sort of best practices, bare bones kind of policy that we can hand out to PSAPs who maybe don't have a lot of resources to write this sort of stuff. Like, here's something to get you started. So we've been working on that. And scary enough, I was the 911 expert in this whole group. And so I had to explain to these people how this is a bunch of mental health and behavioral health people, and explain to them how 911 worked. And the light bulbs that clicked on were just, it was kind of scary, because I said, okay, I got a kid. I used Northern California as an example. Got a kid who is visiting UC Davis, right down the street from us in Sacramento. Maybe he's from New York area code, experiencing some sort of mental health crisis. I don't know, calls in, call routes back to New York, right? That's where that call is going to go. Then, okay, well, now all of a sudden somebody's armed, right? Now we've got a real potential crime on our hands, or something is wrong. That person in New York, that mental health crisis center, then has to figure out how to get back to California, not only back to California, but to the correct PSAP. So there's a lot to this, right? Now, what I keep hearing back from the community, from the mental health community, is that, well, this is 2 to 3% of the calls, so we're not worried about it. Not that they're not worried about it, I shouldn't say that, but it's only 2 to 3% of the calls. Now, 911, we live on those edges, right? I mean, those edge cases are where the worst stuff tends to happen. So you want to be prepared for those 2 to 3%. So they're not really thinking about this just yet. Nobody's really thinking about this yet. So we approached Vibrant and we talked to them about this. I said, I want to see your PSAP list. I want to know where your people are sending calls. When you get a call in, I need to know so that we can sharpen it up, so we can make it better, so you can get it to the proper PSAP. And they said, well, it's proprietary. So it's a system that we have that the 988 call taker feeds in all the data that they have, and it spits out a PSAP that they send it to. So can I look at it? Can I see it? No, I can't. So we're trying to take over that process, to be honest with you. We're trying to take over call routing. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but if the legislation passes in August, and OES is deemed responsible for this network and for this call handling for 988, then we will start to implement our own, just like we do for 911 for the state of California. We'll try to implement our own routing and our own sort of control over it, so that way we can have a little bit more of effective back and forth between the two entities.
I think Dale has a question online.
Oh no, sorry, Dale. You don't get to talk. What's up?
It was a old question for Paul. I texted him. We're good. Carry on.
Take care of him, Paul. Aaron, did you?
So I assume, and I think I got this from you just now, you were deemed responsible at the very beginning. Is that correct? Is the state offices contacted and said, we want to create 988 and?
No, 988 is a federal initiative. So 988 was already in motion, already being done. Somebody said, oh yes, you do 911. This is pretty close. So why don't you go ahead and take care of the technology as well?
That's because one of the questions she had, why were you even involved? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like
Yeah.
those people were transferring the calls to us when they needed us regardless. It's just.
It's a lot of the same thing. No,
I think
exactly.
that's where all the confusion is coming from. And I think, like, especially for us, we had our crisis intervention team. Kind of blow it out of proportion. And
Yeah.
be like, you need to change your policy. And this is what we do. And I'm sitting here sitting back going, no, we don't. Like, those people were still transferring the calls to us when they needed us before. So
Yeah. It doesn't change.
nothing's changed. I think our agency has kind of taken a little step back. I think I tried to school them a little bit, like, we're not changing the way we're doing anything. That's why I was really hesitant to send anything out to the dispatchers at all.
Yeah.
Because
Same thing, same
it's the
process.
same thing, just in case you hear it.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing memes or photos or whatever all over
Yeah.
social media.
Because it's
saying-
live. Yeah.
Saying it's live and it's replacing. They're using the word replace, and that's what bothers me. It's not a replacement. You can still call the 1-800 number.
Yeah.
It's not a replacement.
Yeah.
So when I see these,
It's
memes
the
or
same
photos
thing.
on Facebook, I'm like,
No.
I want to school my friends and be like, no, it's not.
Same as it's always been. Yeah.
Same,
Yeah.
same.
Well, to kind of expand on that, open it up, the big shift that's gonna come when the state tells us at 911 to transfer, that's what we're all
That's when the
preparing
big,
for.
yeah.
You're absolutely right.
With you all
No.
say.
No,
No, not me, not me.
Okay.
The state and legislation.
Okay.
So right now, there's legislation that's passing through rapidly. That
Yeah.
it's almost at a federal level, the state's trying to catch up and everybody's trying to get there together. And what's gonna impact us is when they tell us this call meets this criteria,
Right.
forget all that stuff about, send the cops, send the fire. You're gonna transfer that to 988. In today's world, 988 can't handle that. They're not set up. We will bombard them. So it's interesting, and that's where the big, and we'll talk
Mhm.
about this more at the roundtable after lunch, but
Yeah.
there's a huge gap in what they can handle and what we're gonna send them.
Yeah, especially depending on how the law is written, right? I mean, that could potentially be a lot of calls.
Oh, every 5150, I'm excited. I'm gonna ship them like crazy.
You don't want to talk to me anymore?
Right.
That was mainly my comments. That'll like, share. But I'm assuming the legislation is on the horizon. It's purely about technology and purely about this is where you send the call. There's nothing.
No,
There won't be,
I don't
no,
think that at
Is
all.
there anything about the follow-up once you receive a call?
We'll get your email, we'll send it to you, the stuff that's on the board.
Yeah.
right now, mostly it's technology focused, right?
Right.
It sets up, a funding standard, it sets up that sort of thing. The policy, the win in the how, or the win of the transfer is really still gonna be primarily locally determined, right? They will say, it'll literally say 911 shall transfer to 988, and that's all it's gonna say. So what does that mean, right? And that tells you the the what, but it doesn't tell you anything else. So you guys are,
We're gonna transfer to them, and then they're gonna transfer back to us. Go back to school.
right? So whatever policies you have today for transferring to that 1-800 number will probably be your initial policy. If it has to expand in the future.
No, that's policies like that, are there?
Some LAPD has a pretty robust program.
LAPD
Well,
has a whole
that's because
system
they
for it.
contracted. with
I know.
Stevie Hirsch.
Would be Hirsch, I know.
Yeah, and that, yeah, that's a whole,
They call it 911 diversion. So
yeah, for $1 million a year, is what that's called.
yeah.
That's expensive.
So, I think that what's going to happen is for agencies like that already have some sort of mental health, partnership with Dee Hirsch or whomever, that will probably stay in place for at least the near future. Dee Hirsch is one of those 13 centers. It's going to be a 988, call center. For agencies that don't have those relationships or don't have those resources already established, it's going to be a transfer off to that agency, and that's going to be that. Now, there is expectation in the legislation of in the future, mobile crisis teams, response teams, and all that. But that's all on the 988 side. That's all on these 13 centers to figure that out, right? To get the funding for it and all that. That is not PSAP responsibility or PSAP centric, part of the legislation. So there is a piece there that is heavy duty, and that's where everyone gets confused, and that's what's all over the internet. Is that, oh yeah, you're going to have somebody who can come out to your house and help you talk you through this crisis you're having. That ain't happening for a while,
We can't even talk, we don't even have the resources in the church county to deal with the crisis that we have. I mean, you don't, crisis team is.
And in
In Oxnard, how many officers are CIT trained? Most of them are. So any responding officer might be CIT trained. You don't have to call for a team. Is that your hope to train everyone?
Well, the goal is to have everyone at home dispatch trained, but the bottom line is someone in crisis, we do walk away. I'm not being
Yeah, no,
facetious, I mean, everyone's
No, I know
laughing,
you're field officers. I realize it'd be better not to kill someone who's mentally ill and barricaded. You don't want to kill them to try to figure out quickly, right?
Correct.
How about Ventura City? On CIT, is your goal to be?
Yeah, I
everyone's
mean, we're
CIT?
at the point now where it's like, pretty much everyone's CIT trained. But to Galen's point, it doesn't really change anything, they're a cop, so. We don't have the cops to have that business. So,
Well, yeah, right, so
but
there's nobody else right now is the ugly truth. Full disclosure, I'm vice president of NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, and all we want you to do is pick up the psych ward. And I know you don't want to, because it's gonna tie you up the rest of the night. That's what we want. So we're pushing legislation that way, nationally.
You just don't
Just
want to
please,
be, you
take
just don't
them
want to be
to
in a
cycle.
barricaded
Just-
Yeah.
project.
Okay.
I know.
You're barricaded someone for 4 hours and you're
I
tying
know.
up all the resources of the city.
I know.
And it sounds cold, and I don't mean it to
It's a
sound
light.
cold. But it's the truth of the matter is,
It's a
now you
light.
have all these people that don't want.
figure out what you want to do with it. Yeah, it's an unfunded mandate to the states. So we're working through it. We've talked to all 13 crisis call centers. They're working on personnel, staffing up to make sure they can accommodate all of Tim's transfers, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so here's what I've been pushing to the 988 community, because I've been talking to them a lot lately. Because they're worried about this, this clash of personalities or operational considerations. I'm telling them PSAPs are happy to do this because there's too many calls coming in right now. Too many calls, we're understaffed, we're overworked. Just, yeah, if there's a plan in place, everybody's happy to do this. The key word there is a plan. Everybody wants to make sure that this is a smooth transition and that there's something there that we can grab onto. The questions that I'm getting, what about cities or counties that already have an operation in place, that already have, local mental health crises response teams? What are we doing with those? Is this supposed to supersede that? So these are a lot of questions that we're trying to answer right now, but until the legislation is passed, we're in kind of a gray area right now. you know, even on the technology side right now, OES, we're doing a lot of this work. We were given some money from general fund to get started on it, to make sure they have the technology to transfer. It's 10-digit, whatever. So we don't have any statutory authority to do anything right now. We're doing this work in anticipation of the law passing. So we're getting a lot of questions. You know, we're talking to the Lifeline centers. We're asking them, are you staffed appropriately? Do you realize the influx of calls that are coming, not only from the PSAPs once we start transferring, but just public knowledge, 988, just the fact that it's all over the news, it's all over social media. You're going to get blown up with calls. They seem to understand that, but really our concern right here is transfers in the PSAP community. If you've got, you know, your call takers on the line and they're transferring a call because they have to 988, and they're sitting there because remember, in California, only 90% of those calls get answered, period. You're sitting there and that phone's ringing for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. That's a problem, right? Because now you tied up your resource and you're mandated to transfer. So we're trying to make sure that these 988 centers understand that not only do you need to be staffed appropriately, but we want to get you the technology so that you have priority lines, right? So that when the phone rings and it's from Riverside Sheriff, you pick up, you know, you have to have dedicated personnel to pick up that line. To make sure
Line transfer.
Kick it off.
And Andrew, on that is one of the things that Tim and I, and like I said, NAPCO county boards, met with some of these legislators. That's one of the things that we were very adamant. If we're transferring, we can't
Better
sit
answer
on
it.
these lines for
Yeah.
3, 5, 10 minutes.
Uh.
Is it going to be okay as long as we transfer to the 988 that once we hear it ringing, we disconnect, kind of like we do on some of the calls we have now? They're not sure about how that's going to work yet. So that's some of the liability that we're worried about with this stuff. We can show through ECATs that we transferred the number. Is that going to be good enough?
Yeah, so these are big questions that we're trying to work through right now. And you know, for those of you who worked with OES, you understand we don't tell you how to do your business. We just try to get you the tools to do it. So a lot of it is going to be decided at the local level with that legislation kind of as the backdrop. So, I mean, I was just at the National NINA conference in Louisville, and I was talking to state of Minnesota, and they are in way deeper shit than we are because they have a law on the books already that says that it is illegal to send an armed response to a 5150 call. If there's no like weapon, there's like two little caveats in there. And so they've started sending mobile crisis teams because they had funding set up for it. However, the responders in these mobile crisis teams have realized very quickly that they don't want to go into these situations without an officer accompanying them because it's dangerous, which it's illegal to do. So they are hurting right now. So luckily we're not there yet, but who knows? All right, so I mentioned this briefly. You know, technology limitations are severe right now. With this area code routing, I mean, we got real problems on our hands as far as transferring back and forth, and that's the concern that we have. Is what do we do about these edge cases? These whatever 2-3%, that doesn't matter. It's a number of calls that are going to come through that are going to be, they're going to be routed on area code. Somebody with a 213 area code that's sitting in Boston. It's a problem. So we are we're working on this, at OES, just trying to make sure that the 988 centers understand exactly what it is they're dealing with. They seem to all pretty well understand how the calls are routed to them. Again, it doesn't matter today, and it doesn't matter to 99% of their calls because it's just somebody looking for a voice to talk to or whatever. But being the Office of Emergency Services, we're worried about those emergency cases. And so, if we get statutory control over the network and over call handling and all the good stuff that we do for 911, we think we have a good opportunity to get this fixed and get these calls routed properly, at least inside of California. If not, that doesn't happen. If Vibrant continues to the march that they're on at the federal level, because they do have their hooks in pretty deep at the federal level, then we may not be successful there. So more to come on that. That legislation is still going, finding its way through. But I think they're supposed to meet and debate on it August 1st. I think August 1st is supposed to hit the wire. So there could be a vote. There has to be a vote between August 1st and August 25th. I think is the end of session, something 23rd, 25th. If they don't vote on it, if the legislature punts it, then it dies because it was supposed to go last year, got extended to this year, and every bill gets a 2-year life cycle until it dies. Then it has to be reintroduced, all that. So we'll see what happens, but it'll happen very, very soon.
I think it's 26. It's the
last day of the cycle.
26 this year?
I think that's what it is.
All right, so until that's solved, I mean, the technology at the Lifeline centers, they're just going to need to be able to ingest 10-digit transfers. We are trying, like I said before, to get them racks and circuits through our next gen core service providers. They're not going to be ingested into the 911 network. They're going to be adjacent to it. But we want to have that same, that same level of redundancy and availability so that they can get calls from you and they can send calls to you when necessary. We'll work with them to make sure that their systems are programmed properly to make sure that those calls get to. Today, there's a huge disparity between the centers. D. Hirsch down in LA is state of the art. It's all nice. And they've got some pretty cool equipment that they run on, including like priority lines for LAPD and LA Fire. But then we went to Yellow County up north. It's just telephones on a desk. It's nothing. So we've got a lot of ground to cover for a lot of these centers. So we're kind of working through that right now. We'll get that solved pretty soon. So we already kind of covered this a little bit, so I'll kind of breeze through it, but policy at the local level is very important. That's going to determine where we go with this. I mean, you folks at the city county level are really going to be the ones to write your own policy to determine when and how you transfer. We want to give you the capability to transfer, and we want to give them the ability to adjust those, but you're going to decide when that happens. I mentioned earlier the Policy Academy working group that was set up at the federal level. I participated in that. We are working on presenting some I guess like a decision tree, like a matrix, like when you should transfer, when you shouldn't, that we can give to PSAPs who may not have that in place already and allow them to use that as a baseline. Generally, we don't do that. Like I said, we don't tell PSAPs when and how to do their job, but we felt like this was something that we could at least just get this ball rolling and help out. So we're working on that. We're actually going to bring that to the next task force meeting. So Tim, you'll get some input on that and help us sharpen that up to make sure it's something workable. But standard operating procedure at the local level is going to be our, it's going to decide what we do here. So you guys will, you'll write your own policies. Your city will tell you what, or your county will tell you what you have to do for transfer. So, but the bigger piece, and this is probably where an agency like APCO International comes into play, is we need legislation. We need federal legislation on this. We need some help pushing some things. The FCC met and conferred on location for 988 calls, providing location, mandating the carriers provide location. They decided that it was really difficult and it was a complex issue, so they punted. They didn't decide to mandate it essentially. So they're going to convene another group, another task force or working group to take a deeper look to see if the FCC can mandate it. The only federal agency that can really push the carriers into any one direction. Short of that, that's going to be, we think that's the premier issue in this conversation is getting location for these calls, especially as it relates to 911. Obviously, that's our main concern. So FCC is going to keep talking, through that. We would hope that agencies like APCO and NENA and everyone else is putting pressure on the FCC to make sure that legislation gets written up, or that those rulings get written up so we can get location on these calls. We would like to see some sort of federal legislation drafted. I don't know if that might be a pipe dream. Maybe we'll just have to settle for state, but something to address that liability issue for 911 PSAPs. One of the common things that I hear in the field is if I've got a call and I transfer it off to 988 and that person dies, is my PSAP held liable? It came into us as a 911 call. Who's liable for that death? And that's something that we at the 911 office feel that legislation at the state level should provide coverage for the PSAP personnel in those instances, right? For best effort, kind of, we follow the policy, transfer was called, person died, not our fault, kind of thing. So that's something that we really want to get into. And then state legislation on fee collection technology. We're working on that right now, that August 1st through August 26th timeframe I gave you guys in the legislation that's pending. That has a fee collection service. It's exactly the same as Setna, what we pay for 911 today. It's the same exact model. We just ported it over to 988 so that OES would be able to provide them with the technology they need. There's a future consideration in there for those mobile crisis teams for some sort of, there's going to have to be some sort of rudimentary dispatch. I don't know if radio is really going to come into play. I know that LA Fire Department, when they partnered with D. Hirsch, they wanted them to get radios, when they started sending out mobile units. So that may be a piece of it. But we're working on that. The fund will be considerably lower with only 13 centers. We think that it's going to be a few cents a month for everyone for a 988 fee on your phone. It would be similar to the 911 fee. But that's just technology. That's just network call handling. That has nothing to do with staffing. That has nothing to do with policy, with with lobbying, anything like that. This is just going to be kind of a technology fee so that we can make sure that the network's in place and everything is ready for them to transfer those calls, or for you to transfer those calls. They still have to work on their own staffing. They have to make sure these 13 Lifeline centers have to make sure that they're prepared to answer those calls. And we've talked to them. Some of them seem like they're working on that. They're working on federal grants. They're getting their money through insurance companies, through however they can, with partnerships in the mental health world to get that done. So that's it. Anything else on 988? All right, good discussion. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
We do have a couple of questions.
Oh, we got questions online? You guys, gonna field a couple questions?
Paul, take those.
Yeah, Dale, just text me, Dale.
How did you know? How did you know?
It's
We
Dale
just,
again.
we just assumed it was you, Dale.
Dale Apartment Shop. There was one question from John Henry at San Luis Obispo County. Says, is the CalOES website going to get fixed? Search is broken and all existing links are 404s.
Just open a ticket with IT.
So to answer that specific question, our IT department, again, I want to back up. Anybody in here IT specific? I'm sorry, I apologize now. Our OES IT is updating our website this morning, and it's all broken. Everything. I was chatting with my team on the way down here this morning. It's all messed up. Our team relies on all the data from our website. So pretty much my team's on holiday. So we understand it, and they're following up with IT internally.
Okay.
Could you? I just give you the access. Just fix it. Give you a challenge.
Anything else?
Back earlier, about 11, we were talking about getting checks sent, and then Lisa Barr said that we never really know if it gets accepted when they file for it. There's no notification that a check has been sent. So it's just probably a
Well, you better
verification
fix that.
process.
Okay, specific to the annual training allotment reimbursement, so that's something that I can work with my team. When the forms have been processed and accepted, we'll do some sort of outreach message.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry? You were just asking for a lot today. I need you, you're at about a 9, I need you down here at about a 4. Yeah. So yeah, I'll take that as an action.
Okay. Does anybody else online have any questions? Just unmute. You do.
Yeah, it's Dale. Of course I do. Andrew, when you said the 988 services were potentially looking at being adjacent to 911, are they physically going to be running on the next gen core and separated by like a VLAN sort of thing, or is it just conceptually they're going to be parallel?
Right now, conceptually, Dale, until OES gets some sort of statutory, responsibility for routing those calls, it's just basically going to be, us providing the network redundancy and resiliency, right? The circuits that Paul was talking about, the racks into their call center and the call handling, but the network itself, if we don't get control over the network, then it won't be actually, 911 network. It won't be connected. It won't be through our core. If we do,
Okay, but if you do, you would basically place it on the core.
we could partition the core and put it and run everything through there very easily. Yeah, and we would.
And then with a push to unmask the caller's location and data to these call centers, is there pushback from them? Will the 10-digit number still be anonymous for people who want to remain anonymous, or is it potentially going to cut down their call volume by people being chilled from calling in?
So it's a good question. We were concerned about that early on, right? I mean, the anonymous nature of a caller with suicidal ideation can be pretty important, right? Some of them don't want to give you their name or location. They just want to talk. So we thought that might be a big consideration, but in talking to the call centers, the people answering the calls and running the calls, none of them are really pushing back on that. Everyone seems to think that it's perfectly fine. Now, we've had conversations around that. What does that look like? What does that mean? If your location comes with that call on every call, then yeah, you may have a kind of a backlash, right? For 988, they may not get as many calls as they would if you feel like you're not anonymous. That could be a problem. And so one of the things we've talked about is using our technology to sort of solve that, because we would have the ability in California with the next gen core that we've stood up and the call handling that we're putting out there, we would have the ability to essentially, I wouldn't call it strip that data off the call, but if the call came in with location to the 988 center, to have it sort of redacted, I guess, for a better word, or suppressed. And in the case that the call would need to be sent to 911, then they could send it over and location would still be there with the call. It's just that the 988 center didn't get it, but the 911 center would. Essentially just set up, I don't know, permissions, for lack of a better word, to make sure that that location is there for the 911 call taker. That's something we've been talking about. Now, if the FCC doesn't comply, or doesn't comply, FCC comply. If the FCC doesn't help us out and doesn't rule on this, then we've got a whole different set of problems on our hands that we have to try and figure out. So we're working through that right now. But bottom line is, if they don't provide or they don't mandate location be sent on the call, we can use something like Rapid SOS, Rapid Deploy to get location for that caller. But that's only going to work in the case of wireless. You're not going to get that for VoIP or for wireline. But it would certainly help in 80-90% of the instances of the calls that you're getting.
Would the 10-digit number still be anonymous for them, or not?
Today they get the number of the caller. They get the 10-digit number of the caller, I believe. So
okay.
Yeah, I don't think that would remain anonymous, because I don't think it is today. I think they don't get any Annie, they don't get any alley, they don't get location, but I think they get number today, if I'm not mistaken, Paul.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, so I think they get number today, Dale, so I think that would continue.
Okay.
Anybody
So
else
they can-
online for the question? I see Keith from Rapid SOS is on.
Yeah, Andrew and Paul, before I ask my question, I just want to say publicly, I was going to send you an email, but I'm going to do it here publicly and to say this is one of the best, most informative, interactive presentations I've seen from CalOES, and I'm just so grateful for what the two of you contributed today. So thank you for that.
Can we get that? Keith, I'd like to give it to my boss.
You know what? I'll send the email and I'll CC Budge. How's that? So my question, forgive me, it's born in ignorance, or maybe you covered it and I missed it, but is there such a thing at this point or on the roadmap around text to 988?
Yes. So text to 988 it works today. It already exists.
Okay.
There's in two different forms. So depending on where you are, so there's crisis text line. For any of you who have heard of that, it's 741-741. It's on the back of the every university ID card for every student. It's on the back. Crisis text line. It's a pretty big operation. They're nationwide, so they're handling the bulk of text for 988 for California today, and will be for the foreseeable future. But my understanding is that legislation will, just like 911 legislation will say 988 traffic, so that will apply text and calls. And today there is some sort of chat feature that they run through Vibrant too. It's a little bit of a mess, but I understand that will be part of it too going forward. Now, I don't know what the chat's going to look like if Vibrant is no longer in the picture. If we end up, going a separate direction from them, I don't know what will happen there, but text and calling will certainly still be a key component.
No, that's great, Andrew. Thanks. I've had chats with, this is just background. I've had chats with Crisis Text Line on several occasions, and their whole model is based on anonymity, and they are really opposed, maybe a strong word, but I'll use it and say they're really opposed to having location delivered with those, because they could deter people from making that anonymous text, and that's just Crisis Text Line stance on that, and I understand it.
Yeah. Crisis text line, one of their biggest selling points is the anonymous nature of it. You just text back and forth.
Exactly.
Just some comfort. So we've talked to them. We have almost weekly meetings with crisis text line right now. So we're working through that with them, Keith. So we'll definitely be talking to them. They've talked about the possibility of becoming a 14th Lifeline center in California because they're already part of that network nationwide. They're just not part of the California, that 13 center consortium that I was talking about. So they talked about that, and if we can get them in, too early to say, but perhaps there's an avenue to leave those texts anonymous. I'm not sure how we'll go on that one.
If you don't mind, I'll just add one more piece, which I think is interesting. Crisis text line is, they use area codes, right? Because they know the area code. And if they understand that an emergency response is needed, they look at the area code and they randomly select a police department to call and beg for help.
Yes, they have no,
And say,
getting to.
yeah. And a lot of PSAPs just reject it and say, we don't know why you're calling us. There's nothing we can do to help. And, I've tried to share that with agencies. It's like, just please give them, first of all, understand that they exist. They're real. When they're asking for help, they mean it. And please don't reject those calls. Give them, all the help you can to find that person who's in crisis.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's going to be a long road, Keith, but yeah, I definitely understand. We've heard that one before. So, yeah.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.